And we are live. Welcome back, everyone, to the Red Hot Show, episode 5. Very exciting. And welcome to the show, Jacko.
Thank you, big fella. Great to be back.
Beautiful. Now, things are heating up, much like last week. We're getting to the crunch time. So we are going to talk a little bit of politics as normal to kick things off. Saucy's got a couple of fun Trump-related items, and then we're going to also look into some of the looming threats on the horizon pertaining towards potential widespread violence, the imminent threat of a global war, what this might mean for us and also for the markets. And then we will go into some more specific market-related stuff later in the show. And then we'll wrap it up with Saucy's Sips. So without further ado, let's get into today's show. And Jacko, I might pass over to you to kick things off with some high-level election updates and your general overview.
All right, Natho. Well, I'd like to first take a little bit of credit from last week. For the listeners that were lucky enough to get in on our early insight last week, we successfully predicted the momentum surge, and we were early on it too. So that surge for Trump has definitively continued, and it's gotten to a point now, Nath, where the betting markets have shortened even further. Trump is $1.50 favourite. And I really do believe that is a more accurate representation of the state of the race. I think on any reputable polling platform, Trump is now the clear favourite. His battleground state leads are significant, again, according to most pollsters. And remember, this is a guy that classically the polling is so biased against. So they haven't recalibrated their algorithm to try to counter the anti-Trump bias. So that leaves you to think, well, actually, he must be in a very, very strong position here if he's so close to the national popular vote. So anyway, Natho, we successfully predicted the momentum surge and called it quite early. And I am calling again that Trump, without a doubt, is the best closer in US modern political history. This campaign is finishing in an absolutely barnstorming fashion.
What's what we predicted that a month ago as well, didn't we? We were talking about how he's traditionally very good at closing and has a lot of aces up his sleeves, much like that McDonald's stunt.
Indeed, and we'll get into that in a second. One thing I want to quickly bring up. So the big news. The big strategy from the Dems in the last few weeks, which I think is a very telltale sign of where they are at, is their relentless attacks on Trump's declining mental cognitive state and mental faculties. Now, this is a really, really interesting moment in the election cycle, in my opinion, because it's become their number one go-to in their playbook. And frankly, it is so desperate. It reeks of desperation, and it is so utterly pathetic in light of their 8-year cover-up, really, of Biden's genuine, very real mental decline and horrible state of cognitive affairs in the Biden brain department. The man doesn't know where he is half the time. He literally cannot pull two coherent sentences together. And yet you have a Donald J. Trump who has doubled the media appearances and rally events of Kamala Harris since Harris was announced as the candidate. You have Trump, who has handed in very recently perfect health records in terms of his mental state. Yes, he is 78 years old. He may not be. The one thing I will say, and I've watched Trump closely this campaign. By the way, I think it's the best political campaign in US modern political history. I really do. And we'll get into that. But one thing that you can say is he might not be as sharp as his, 65-year-old self.
I agree with that. He's not as sharp.
Not quite as sharp, if you're to be fair. However, for the Dems to come out and for the media to regurgitate this attack line of, Trump's not mentally fit to serve office. Hello. Are you serious? Because it's the most hypocritical. It's not even hypocritical. It's holding one guy to a much different standard than the other. Trump is in a fine mental state. Biden does not know where the fuck he is. So, Nath, that shows how desperate the Dems are. And they don't, and again, I said it last week, they don't have substance. So they just don't have substance.
That point, slight segue on that point and around the cognitive capacity. Trump's never been a campaigner or a speaker that really gets into the details of exactly how he might execute upon something. He always keeps it quite high level. And something I found really interesting probably a week or so ago was listening to Bobby Kennedy, who also is unbelievable in his campaigning and the amount of appearances he makes on the backdoor media stuff, podcasts, radio, etc., etc. He was talking about how the recent union between him and Trump has elucidated some of the initial suspicions that RFK had about his first term. And this was really encouraging to hear because what he said was to Bobby, he said, look, mate, I didn't even expect to win in 2016. He conceded that. And when I won and I was thrust into office, I had every Bob, Jane, Dick, Harry that had been in the system for 30 years lobbying me with, we got to keep control of all the agriculture. Like you can't get rid of us here. Like we've done this, this, and this, and this, and you've got over. I think it was. I might be wrong on this, so don't quote me, but it's a lot. You have over like 300 appointments to make quite quickly when you get into office, and Trump conceded to Bobby that this was his first time doing this. Now he had a vision in mind, which I think he's going to actually execute his legacy and his true vision this time round because he learnt so much in the first 4 years. But the problem is that he did put in place a lot of bad people.
Yeah,
I won't name specific names, but he got lobbied against hard. He got co-opted in certain really important areas. Like the areas that Bobby is super passionate about. And that's why Trump is a dot connecting type of guy. He in all of his business career and now that he's kind of learnt the ecosystem of politics, you can be rest assured that he's never going to show you his full hand. It's like at a poker game. Why would he show you before the river comes out what cards he holds? That's his whole play as well. He doesn't want to reveal how he intends to bring peace to the world. He doesn't want to reveal exactly how he wants to do things because why would you? He's a master negotiator. But what he is a people man. He knows how to connect these dots. And that's why someone like Bobby this time round is going to be injected into dismantling and ensuring that the right people are put in place for his stuff, which is make America healthy again. Then you've got Elon, who is going to inject to ensure that the efficiency of the bureaucracy is much better instead of having all these layers. So I think what he's learnt clearly is that he can't do it all on his own, obviously, and he can assemble this sort of Avengers team to go in there and do all the jobs necessary to really expedite this repair process, if you will. So
that's right, Nath. Yeah,
I wanted to touch on that.
It's a really good point, and you see every second day another pathetic attack line by the Dems. You see them wheel out some political hack on CNN or MSNBC who was in the Trump administration, because they were one of those people that were pushed very hard upon Trump to appoint. And of course, Trump got rid of a lot of these people, but yes, they were in the administration because of the reasons you stated. And Elon Musk, with his Department of Government Efficiency, acronym DOGE, which is very funny.
Doge.
Yeah, he will absolutely annihilate these political hacks that are thrust upon a Trump administration if he wins. And Bobby Kennedy is again the perfect colleague to ensure that the right people are pushing for the right outcomes for the American people, yes, and for the world as a whole. So it is exciting, Nath, because if there is a second administration, it will be a more selective group of people in charge, and probably far less people calling the shots, which I think is very healthy. Big government to me is inefficient, not robust enough. And so, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Could I put a question to you, Nathan?
Yes, you can.
Do you think this is the best political campaign in modern political history? And I'll take you through 4 events. So with these events in mind, with the fight back against the weaponization of justice systems to defeat Trump legally, and his powerful reaction to those, including the mugshot, iconic mugshot, the assassination attempt 1, destroying Biden in the debate and literally ending his political career, even though he somehow is still president. 3, and of course, this McDonald's campaign, which is very fresh now, already an iconic moment in campaigning history. So where does it sit for you, Nath? Is it numero uno or a little lower on the pecking order?
Well, I mean, there's not really many comparables, mate. We live in the most bizarre, strange times ever. Everything's coming to a climax. And no, look, I've said it before. I think what you're seeing is the dismantling of, or the corrosion, the rapid corrosion of a despicably evil corporatocracy and government structure that's lasted since the Truman era. It was assembled in the Truman era. So, yeah, nothing compares to what we're seeing right now. I know they always say every time the US election comes around, this is the biggest and best one ever, and you can't miss it. And it's like there's the sensationalism behind it, and but no, this one really is. There's something different in the air, and I also think we haven't seen everything unfold just yet. I think there's going to be I really think the next couple of weeks is going to be quite scary. I'm convinced of that now. But to answer your question, I would say, of course, definitely. But off that, I would segue into. I'm conscious we have to cover what we want to cover here. Yeah, we kind of touched on that. I want to segue into this synopsis of potential terrorism spot fires and potential cannibalizing of Trump's win, which is really likely from my research. I want to touch on that because it's something that's very important, but also want to give the message out to remain hopeful that things will work out, because I also believe that. So you happy for me to dive into that for a little bit?
Yeah, I might just dissect quickly what you mean. Do you mean that in the next 2 weeks, the Dems will work hard to somehow stop what seems like a fairly likely Trump victory in the election? Or do you mean the Dems in the next 2 weeks and coming months will sabotage a potential Trump second term?
Both. So
Okay.
already the early voting, we're seeing huge fraud. People are reporting that when they vote Republican or whatever, it's flipping. There's technical glitches in their systems, much like last time. That's small fry. I'm going to declare this now. I don't think their fraudulent schemes are going to be powerful enough this time to overthrow the result. He's too far in front. You might be able to get a 5% to 7% swing with what they did last time, and if you throw in the 20 million illegal aliens voting, then maybe you might bump that up to 10%, but I don't think it's going to be enough. So what I'm saying is, post a Trump victory, you're looking at a 90-day-ish period before you get inaugurated.
Yeah.
Now, what is likely is a outbreak, whether it's global or just domestic, of violence. And we mean civil unrest is the more broadly accepted outcome. I think everyone kind of understands there will be some sort of civil unrest, protests, whatever. But
let's hope it's very low, by the way. Let's hope it's quite a peaceful transition.
I can't see that happening. So when you look at the setup from your Soroses and the deep, dark, shadowy figures, this immigration problem is much deeper and calculated than you think. It's not just for voter fraud. The fact that FEMA have spent billions on housing these illegal aliens in America. This is just America alone, by the way. You've got this systemic problem all across Europe. You've got these hotels full for almost a year of people from war-torn or really low socioeconomic areas in different foreign countries that have been put up. Why? Is it just for housing? I tend to think now, with the murmurs and the reporting that's going on, is that there's going to be some sort of preparation going on for an event. Now, I'm going to tie this together because you'll get it by the end. This has also happened in Australia. We just saw our biggest ever year of immigration. We had over 600,000 new immigrants come into our country, and they're going, woohoo! It's like, no, not woohoo. I quite like my country, and I think there needs to be more. I'm not saying we're like America and Europe, but it's going down the wrong path, in my opinion. We're plenty diverse enough here. The problem with all this is that the big agenda from your World Economic Forums, the UN, and the globalists abroad is to roll out a new system, financial system, but also a new ID system, so that they can keep track of not just having your ID lodged on a docket for themselves, but everything. Eventually, your assets will be attached to that. They'll tokenize. We can talk about tokenization in a different chat, but everything will be tracked. But how do you pass that through the populace? How do you get the populace to just roll over and accept that, like the vaccines, for instance? Well, you do it through fear, and you do it through removing civil liberties. That's how they got us to all do the jab. You want to go to the pub, you want to go see your mates, well, you got to get the jab. Now, if this does play out, which I think it might, when the election goes through, they'll probably start to pop up false flags all around the world, particularly the US. Now, they'll have real events as well, which I think will be terror attacks. Not like it may be bombs, but most likely just arms. It'll be knives. It'll be street warfare. It'll be serious civil unrest. You've seen the DOD just last week. I did a video on it. They just passed very, very dystopian, crazy laws that allow the military to use lethal force against any civilians that they deem are fighting back, it's really, really scary stuff. And they passed that in late September. Why? Why would you pass that? Well, because I think this is what's about to happen. So I think they're going to then, your Soroses, like Black Lives Matter, when he propagated all that crap, they're going to come out and they're going to release the hounds. They're going to release all of these people that are probably paid off, much like they paid a lot of these BLM protesters in the past, to attack people. And these attacks will spot up, and then the media will also film and create false events like they've done in the past as well. It's a big rabbit hole, but you can look into that. All of Camilla's rallies are fake, completely fake. They pay all the people to come in on buses, and they film it. They tell them when to clap. They tell them when to applaud. It's completely staged. All of it's staged. So this will then instill fear again in the populace if these attacks are horrific enough. And then the only solution to this problem that's been propagated by them is better tracking of individuals, so digital IDs. We have to do it, guys. We have to. How are we going to deport everyone? How are we going to get rid of everyone if we don't get them on digital IDs? You do that. And then off the back of that, you roll out a new financial system, because then the banks will collapse, because the banks are about to collapse. They'll pull the trigger there. And then the only way you get your money back out of the bank is if we spot you in digital dollars or CBDCs. That's their plan. I don't know if they're going to execute all of it. I really hope they don't. But I know for a fact that's their plan, because it's the only way they're going to do it. The 80% of the populace that are dumb enough to buy into it, they'll go, oh my God, mass panic. Shit, we can't move now because there's all these attacks. And then we have to give them, I'll get my ID, and oh no, all my money's gone. And then the bank will say, oh, yeah, well, we'll give you your money back, but the only way you're going to get your money back if you quickly sign up, get your digital ID sorted, and then we'll spot you the money you lost from fucking Bank West or whatever, and Combank, and we'll go, yeah, well, Combank, we're good for it, but we'll only issue it to you in the Australian digital dollar. That's the plan, because otherwise no one's going to roll over and just concede all of that. So that's my fearful diagnosis on what might happen. A smaller scale version events will be just your civil unrest, which I think we can probably both accept is going to, some shape or form, going to happen. Not globally, but domestically for the US. But yeah, it's frightening, because I've been in the weeds on this for a number of weeks now, trying to assess how it's all going to play out. And that the final piece to all this is, if they really want, they don't have to certify his win. If they propagate, the whole, they've already tried it with the storming of Washington. That what was it called? What do they call that?
What, the J6?
January 6th. Yeah, January 6th, exactly. That's their plan. They'll create mass chaos, and then they'll probably pin it all on Trump for propagating it. And then they go, no, we're not certifying your win. Fuck off.
Very doomsday, big fella. You know what?
Happy Wednesday, mate.
Happy hump day, guys. It's the end of the world. It's coming quick. No, Natho, you know what's interesting? And again, there's no doubt we have different theories on probably the state of the world and the level of alarm. However, one thing I do concede, which is really quite tragic in a sense, is that I do think that the powers that be at the moment are capable of really devious and dark things. And I also think, the people that believe in these governments are also the people that believe in legacy media and swallow the narratives that they are put forth. And yeah, I do think that they have control over a large portion of people, and with that control, and also with that moral righteousness, because they feel like anything they do is on the right side of history, and including censoring free speech, including taking away civil liberties from those that disagree with them. So I think the truth is that there is cause for concern, and there is due angst, because I basically think these governments, They are capable of the dark arts game, and they've been playing it quite consistently. However, Nath, where we differ is I'm not sure they're capable of the level of darkness that you're alluding to. Now, I think their intent is often bad, but not to the level you're alluding to. They want power and they want control. I don't know if they want destruction. And the
only thing on that is think of the debt problem. The only way to fix that is war.
And I think that's a logical. I think there is logic to that argument. But the other thing I would say, you mentioned the 80% of the populace before. The other thing I would say is I actually think there has been an enlightenment, and I think society has been quite awake. And look at Trump. Trump's a rebellious politician, and by the way, rightly or wrongly, you can disagree with this, but his base, which is probably 37, 38%, like hardcore base of the American population, they would believe something he says over something that almost anyone else says. Now, with great power comes great responsibility. Yes. I understand that the picture they've painted of Trump, for the other side, would have them panicking to the extent they are, and would have them saying the crazy things they do. Because, the government has shaped this terrifying narrative of a guy that wields a lot of power. But what I'm saying, Nath, is the way he got that power is simply by being a more authentic, more trustworthy, and again, these words will be disputed, but I think they're absolutely fair to submit in public forum. I think he's a more authentic and more trustworthy and transparent alternative to the political class establishment and deep state tentacles that we continuously see running the world.
So how would you, if you're a deep state operative and you're not going to certify Trump's win, which I think is likely, how would you leverage those good qualities that we both agree on in Trumpy?
Look, this will be a test. This will be a test for Donnie, and I think we probably disagree again on how much he can be bought, how much he can be influenced. Maybe is the better word, or controlled. Hard to buy someone that's worth $7.4 billion, even though the Dems would have you believe he's bankrupt. But yeah, I do believe, Nath, that's going to be a test for him. I think he and people like Elon and Bobby Kennedy there beside him is really, really positive. And also kudos to Donald Trump Jr., who is very much a free spirit, wild heart kind of character, who's perfectly aware of the threats of the governing class. But yeah, I think he's got enough good people around him to at least inform him of the right course and keep him honest about, using his power responsibly and not falling for the traps that I'm sure they will try to set. So that's my analysis, and maybe that is too optimistic, but I think in Trump you certainly don't have your typical politician. You've got a very different beast.
Completely. And look, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying. I just wanted to bring to light some of the thoughts that I've been having through my research. Really, the stories I cover can be quite dark and heavy. But at the same time, I share the same hope as you. I think the collective consciousness is so strong; it's the strongest it's ever been. And on a more positive note, this is a little astrological number, because I had a big chat with a lady yesterday who is covering a very heavy piece, but I'm not super into astrology, and I don't really understand how to tie it all in, but I have been seeing a lot more of this stuff lately. And this is a very positive note. We move, and this is unequivocal, you move through 2,800 year cycles. And this is what all the ancient cultures observed and basically lived by. You look at all the old structures that they built and their admiration for certain star signs and different ages. We're now moving through, or right at the end of the age of Pisces, and we're moving into Aquarius. And I didn't even know what that meant or what the significance of it was until probably the last week or so, because it keeps popping up, and some of my followers have been saying, oh, you should look into what's actually happening, because I keep talking about this collective consciousness concept that me and you often reflect on. And the astrological significance is that Pisces and all the derivative meanings symbolizes the age of humans being asleep and kind of unconscious, if that makes sense, and easily manipulatable. Now, the age of Aquarius is in perfect alignment with the ages of prosperity, golden ages, higher thought, and basically doing the things that some of these ancient cultures once did. We move into a completely different realm of thought and a different realm of collective consciousness, Christ consciousness, if you want to call it, whatever spin you want to put on that. But that's the extremely positive thing for me, because we can feel it, we can palpably feel it. And we are transitioning through that age right now. There's no definitive day or year. It's deeply speculated, because all these different cultures had different ways of measuring their calendars and their dates. But that to me is what I can feel, and all you can be guided by in life really is your belief systems and your core faiths. And I have full faith in that, and I think we can all feel it, which is the most important thing. So I have faith that that's where we are heading. I do think we're moving to a much more prosperous age. Whether we're going to be around for it or not, I don't know, but that's where we're heading.
Well, I think that is something both of us definitely believe in. Is collective consciousness growing, independent thought prospering slowly. But yeah, we are going to have some turbulence before we get there, Natho. There's no doubt. Like you alluded to, I think there will be an element of unrest. Again, the vitriol in public debate these days, particularly depending on which side of the political spectrum you lean or fall, tends to be a more far left, moderate right state of play these days. But yeah, I've got to say, Nath, I really think there's problems emerging with the disconnect between men and women in society, and certainly the views differing, growing further apart rather than coming closer together. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed rather urgently. And also, I do think clearly, I use the classic train analogy. I think the train missed the common sense stop and has just rolled forward. Rolled far to the left. So it's headed east at a rapid rate of knots, and it does definitely need to be taken back a notch or two. And I think that will happen. But my fear is that we might lose some vulnerable people along the way, people that maybe have bought in too much to and strayed too far from common sense, that can't really be brought back into the fold. I do fear there is a decent portion of people that will really struggle if we do pull it back somewhat, which again I feel firmly that needs to be done. So that's a harsh reality I think we'll live through and we'll see. Is a lot probably just it'll probably result in physically just a lot more battlers and a lot more lost people in society. But yeah, Nath, there's some turbulence for sure, and there's a lot of problems to address. But I think you can take heart in things that happen every day, and you can take heart in many movements that continuously gain traction and momentum. So it's an interesting time we're going to live through, but hopefully, it can be a prosperous period eventually, and we can contribute to a society that we believe is on the right track.
Oh, we already are, my friend. We're already contributing. So that's the big win. doing all we can. But I do have faith, as you said, that hopefully more and more people come to the party. Now, shall we move into some brief remarks on Lydia Thorp? And then we will move into the market stuff.
Okay. Well, Lydia Thorp. Okay. Well, I'm so glad you mentioned Lydia Thorp. I just referred to that analogy of people missing, people getting lost in society, losing their way because they're too bought into political ideology that fundamentally lacks common sense. Lydia Thorp, Exhibit A. And, respectfully to Lydia, I actually think in a way you do have to admire how principled she is. Now I'll get into the negatives very soon, but you do have to admire how much she seemingly, it might just be a cry for attention and help, it most likely is, but at the very least, she's willing to go far for what she believes in. And now that belief might just be self-interest, or she may actually believe some of the absolute tripe that she puts on a show and a rally to try to get headlines for. But what she did the other day, and I'm no monarchist, but the lack of respect and lack of class, no class, a really despicable performance, walking into what is a really special moment where a sick, cancer-riddled King Charles is meeting with Australia's, politicians and representatives of our great country. And Lydia Thorpe, of course, ruins the show, ruins the moment with that pathetic outburst. It's something she's done on countless occasions now. And yeah, I actually saw Camilla. I saw Camilla yesterday. She went next door to my local coffee shop on Crown Street in Surrey Hills in Sydney. They're doing a royal appearance, of course, and it could be their last. Who knows? Let's hope not. But Camilla, it was cool to see her. She was full of grace, very classy, very respectful, and there is a conversation emerging in society at the moment, Australian society. Do we become a republic? We'll have that discussion in due course, Nath, because I happen to think that's a very sensible option from a guy that's quite passionate about Australia and I would go as far as saying very patriotic. Then yes, to me it seems like the logical place to go, and a lot of conservatives disagree, but I do have to give credit to the likes of Charles and Camilla because they do put on a good performance. I think they are adequate role models, and I don't think the level of vitriol and hatred that the likes of Lydia Thorpe have for the royal family is justified. Yep, things happened 400, 500,000 years ago, Lydia and her blind followers, but King Charles is not solely responsible for the acts of his great-great-grandfathers and so forth. So anyway, I thought that was disgraceful, and I hope everyone thought that was disgraceful. Did you think it was disgraceful? Yeah.
Oh, it's shocking. She just seems like a brat. Like it seems like she's like a brat. Let's move into the markets, which is brought to you by our company, Cashew. And I wanted to just put up a little graphic on screen here as we talk about Cashew and its terrific performance. So bear with me whilst I share screen, because this is quite an interesting one I think you'll like. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me when you can see the screen.
Got it. Beautiful screen.
Wonderful. So this is quite cool. The average investor, retail investor, you and I, Wall Street, always been against the little guy, has only typically returned around 2% over 20 years versus all these other metrics. So real estate investment trusts obviously leading the way. S&P 500 solid up there at 8.2. Now, obviously, in recent years, S&P's performed a lot better. This is an annualized return over 20 years. But the point still remains, average retail investors don't typically break through that much. And I think this is something that's probably a big barrier to entry for a lot of people, is not many people have success with investing. And I think for us at Cashew, I keep trying to reiterate this week on week. We ain't investing pros, but we have access to an algorithm that basically outperforms hedge funds. It does way better than S&P 500 year on year typically, and it's only been in existence for 5 years, but we've been averaging behind the scenes between 35 to 40% a year. Now, over 20 years, what does that look like? I don't know, but all I know is the S&P over the last few years has only done 21% in obviously a much more handsome investing environment. So wanted to bring that up because our technology is really, really quite special. And we're running our little discount at the moment. You can get 50% off in the description below to our packs. It's basically 2 picks a month, 3 different packs. And go check it out because there's some real winners in there. And you'd be missing out if you don't get exposure to them. Also have a look at my ebook. If you're concerned with the macroeconomic environment and all the geopolitical events going on, I am too. So there's no better time to safeguard your wealth than right now. And I talk to all of that in the ebook and where I think some safe bets are. Jack and I talk a lot about it. I've been talking a lot about your defense stocks, hedging your bets against, it doesn't matter who wins, what's going to happen with the world. We've got you covered. So read up on that and then ideally get into some of our paid packs because you won't regret it. So I'll leave it there for the little intro into the market. I'll get Jacko to come in with his 2 cents on his market sentiment and how he's feeling about things. And then we'll talk about a couple of specific opportunities that I've got in mind.
Thank you, Natho. Yeah, I brief outlook from me this week. I want to reiterate my thoughts and sentiments from last week that I've done more research on India and India's potential. And I really, I will personally be investing in the Nifty 50, ASX ticker NDIA. I think not only are the companies strong and the companies that are in that ETF, they're definitely the companies I think that will drive India forward, that will be a large part of India's growth. And I think India, in a sense, will distance themselves from the problems of the West and the potential tensions of war. I think India are really positioning themselves as a Switzerland, which is healthy, to ensure stable economic prosperity, which is very much on the weather forecast for them. So yes, Nath, I remain very bullish, probably more bullish on India's prospects and their growth trajectory. Again, echoing or exceeding the rise of the Chinese middle class in the early 2000s is the trajectory I envisage. And then, I think the Protect America pack from Cashew and defense stocks that are primed to surge regardless of the election result. Perhaps more so if Trump is elected, with just strengthening up, beefing up the military. The Iron Dome is is a big one. Maybe Mexico will pay for it, maybe they won't. But no, that was a joke, by the way. But I do think the Protect America pack, 2 new defense picks with a proven algorithm responsible for selecting the best stocks, is a really good place to park a bit of coin, and certainly worth in terms of being a category and a sector that's worth thinking about for the average investor. So Yeah, Nath, they're my two main thoughts. I know your head has been swirling with the geopolitical environment and global tensions and what that means for money. So where's your head at?
Yeah, I'll echo your sentiments on Nifty 50 and other Indian ETFs. I mean, just percentages wise, like I've been in it for a while. I've spoken about it a lot. I've got holdings, small holdings in Nifty 50, but I got in back in March. It's already up 13% this year.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And it's up 26% the last year. And Jacko makes a really important point there. They're almost agnostic of all the geopolitical crap. They're surging middle class. They're not really putting themselves in bad positions geopolitically, and they're doing their thing. So I really do think that's a smart, great opportunity. Of course, if shit hits the fan, it'll drop a little bit. But remember, you're investing in an ETF for the long game. You know, you're looking at it in 10 years' time. It's a set and forget, and you're going to be handsomely rewarded, in my opinion. Now, yeah, I've been quite bullish on the defense stuff. You touched on it there. The defense is really hedging your bets. Your Lockheed Martins, your Raytheons, even your Boeings, like these types of companies, they're too deeply embedded in everything deep state, but also everything war and defense. So, unfortunately, even if the worst happens and we go to war, and I know people might blow up and go, "What about the ethical concerns? You're profiting off war." Well, fuck, you know, it's hard enough to buy milk and cereal at the moment, let alone buy a house. So you got to think outside the box, and that's what they all do as well. So you got to really consider that. If you're ethically worried, then maybe don't do it. But I'm telling you, like Lockheed Martin's up 33% in the last 6 months. Like, what is that? The chart on it is just, it's like a one-sided triangle. It's unbelievable. So I'm very bullish on that. And then the big thing for me at the moment is your gold and your silver and your utility crypto. I think you can't, like silver is just surging. It went up 6% in a day 2 days ago. Now, the geopolitical ties to this is quite complex, but what I'm really sniffing is a move from the BRICS in particular to tie up a commodity-backed exchange system between those nations. So their currencies will be backed and pegged to these commodities, basically obliterating a lot of the debt, but they'll probably need to do the war thing as well to sort that out. And I think US will move there as well, but they're going to be slower. Maybe not. Maybe the US dollar just implodes overnight because their banks are certainly collapsing and they're not telling us about that. So I think I believe it was Reagan, wasn't it? Reagan was the last one that had the dollar backed by gold. Was it Reagan?
I'd have to check. Not sure.
Let me just double check that. Reagan backed gold, I think it was. Yeah. So he was the last one before it all absolved. So this is where the world's heading because the debt problem's just too big.
And it's gotten a lot larger in a very short space of time. The Dems have lifted that debt. Is it right, Natho, that in the last 3-4 months that has risen considerably?
Nearly $1 trillion.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is compounding at an astronomical rate. It's pretty cooked. So, look, this is all about our chats we have here is about how can you best hedge yourself. Basically, it's almost arbitrage. Like really, like we're coming up with ways to position our finances in such a fashion that we're not going to be as affected, or in most cases, actually benefit from the world events that are taking place. And gold, silver, no brainer in my opinion. You can get access to them through select ETFs if you don't want to buy the physical form. It's a lot easier. I think. Well, it's a lot cheaper as well if you want to just buy silver bullion. You can get kilo blocks of that for like $1,700, or you can get obviously less than that as well. But silver's use cases are only going to become more and more numerous over the years. We talked about it last week in the batteries and all the other essential electronics. But then the final one for me is always the utility crypto. Keep an eye out for the emergence of XRPs, XDCs, XLMs, and HBAR. They're the big utility ones that I'm looking at. But I will say this: we're seeing BlackRock this week just bought up, like, I don't know exactly, but it was billions and billions of dollars of Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin bull rush is about to happen, I think. And off the back of that, everything blows up. All the crypto blows up. And I think this is also a good hedge against your traditional monetary system. It all benefits. If the monetary system starts to implode, which I think it will, and the banks go to shit, look, there'll be a short-term dip in the crypto. But look what happened during COVID. I know the market's also rebounded, but nothing rebounds and explodes like a crypto bull run. You might see a 25% move in the S&P and the Dow Jones, but you're not going to see. You're seeing astronomical figures in the crypto landscape, because ultimately, from a philosophical standpoint, if you're getting in now into these cryptos and digital technologies that are going to be here for the next 100 years, you're getting in at the bottom floor. It's like buying into the stock market back in the early 1900s. It's like buying into the internet before the internet blew up. And we as retail investors have a huge opportunity that we've never really had before to get in before institutions. Now, of course, institutions are already buying up Bitcoin, but the institutions aren't buying up a lot of these utility-based tokens. Well, they might have some of it locked away, but we don't know about it yet. But you're getting in at the ground floor, and that's why I'm so bullish on being smart with not only conventional investments like you and I talk about, but also exposing yourself to some of these new technologies that could give you huge, huge growth, life-changing growth, and wealth, hopefully, if you put enough in. So that'd be my 2 cents on the markets and what's going on with the geopolitics. But yeah, lots of fear and gloom in some respects, but I think even all of our sentiments protect us from that. So just consider it. Of course, never financial advice, guys. We're not telling you to do it, but this is Saucy and I passionately talking about what we are doing ourselves, and you can go off and do your own research and take it with a pinch of salt. But that's where our heads are at. Anything more from you, Saucy, before we rip into your sippers?
No, Nath. I think you've covered it very nicely indeed. The one thing I think I've said every week is that, I think the market is now continuing to lock in a Trump victory. That certainly seems to be the way the market's moving. So with that being factored in, Nath, I'm really interested in a few things: oil, Bitcoin, defense stocks. Also just the general shift of the S&P, and whether that will be favorable and positive, but which I expect it will be. But yeah, I'm excited from a Bitcoin standpoint with Trump's chances rising. What is potentially the first very pro-Bitcoin president, because he wasn't in his first term, but now he's done a complete U-turn, which people are allowed to do, by the way. What will the first pro-Bitcoin president or pro-crypto president actually do? And that's the $1 million question. So I'm keeping a very close eye on that, Nath. But yes, that, I think, wraps up the finance section, brought to you by the Cashew app and Cashew stock packs. Get yourself the Protect America pack today. 2 new stock picks per month. But Nath, moving on to Saucy's sips, if you're ready to get sipping.
Ready to go.
Do you have a water, or are you cracking a beer at 9:30 in the morning?
We really need to do a proper, once we get up some traction, we'll do a proper Saucy sips in person again with beers, but sadly it's just the water for me.
Let's do the water. So, Natho, again, there's a theme to this one. And the simple rules are as follows. Nathan just needs to take a sip. If he would drink with the people I ask whether he would get a drink with at the pub. So, and Nathan will give a brief explanation as to why he would or why he would not. So, Natho, there is a theme, and you might pick it up quite quickly, but the first man is Mark Zuckerberg. The Zuck.
The Zuck the cuck. Days gone by, absolutely not. But these days, I would.
Yeah.
He's changed his tune. He's stepping up. He's not. I mean, he's exposed that he was co-opted in the censorship stuff, the censorship debacle of COVID and the last election, which I think was admirable. And he does jiu-jitsu, which I do and I love, which is kind of cool. And he's become a little bit more of an alpha male instead of a little nerdy, weaselly tech guy that just bowed down to the powers that be. So no, he's earned my respect a fair bit over the last couple of years. So I would get a drink with him.
Couldn't agree more. Great answer, big fella. The next man is Jeff Bezos.
Big Jeff. Yeah, I think that one. Yeah, I'd still get a drink with him. I mean, he doesn't seem like the most interesting guy. Maybe I
but
would.
you don't have much against him.
No, he's just a bit bland. I don't really know. I mean, I've covered a story on him before. Everyone knows what he's done, but
yeah.
No, maybe I would. No, I wouldn't actually. There's not really much that interests me there.
So just for context, I'll give a hypothetical. You run into Jeff at the local coffee shop, and he goes, "Oh, mate, geez, you're a good strapping young man. Be great to get a drink if you're free tonight." You are saying directly to Jeff Bezos, "No, mate, I'm not interested."
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying.
Big snub. Moving on. An interesting one. I think I know what your answer will be here, but Elon Musk.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to pick his brains. I'd really love to know, above all, what he thinks about religion and what his thoughts are on spirituality, because if things pan out the way we think they will, he's going to have a lot of power. I mean, he already does have a lot of power, but the one thing with him that scares me is his Neuralink stuff. And if he was to ever get co-opted, I mean, he's leading the charge with the brain implant crap. And I get very worried that if he was to ever be compromised and they used that shit for malevolent purposes, I'd be very, very scared. So I would have a ton of questions for him, and I would love to sit down with him and have a drink to really understand the man, and to connect with him and just figure him out. So absolutely.
Yeah, very good. And the last one, Natho, interesting cat. Bill Gates, recently single.
It's disgusting, awful bloke. Wants us to eat insects. He basically is like an insect. He's, fucking wants us all to be heavily vaccinated. He wants fucking The list goes on, mate. He's a devil, and I think he's actually shaking in his boots if Trumpy wins, because he is on that list. He's on that Epstein list, and he's shit. He is shitting bricks.
No holding back on the Bill Gates assessment. Wowee. That's almost a drink in the face. Not even just a snub for drinks. That's like a...
That's a glass. That's a glass job, mate.
Oh, you've seen
awful way.
And for those that don't know Nath personally, that's a little bit of angry Nath coming out to play. No, very, very good, very honest take, Natho. My personal view on Bill would be more tempered than that. But no, I do agree that he's got a bit to answer for. So Nath, you are at the bar now with a group comprising Elon Musk, and who else did you agree to? Zuck, just Elon and Zuck. Wow, a lot of tension there.
This is interesting. I think I'd have to give Dana White a call, and I'd facilitate their much
their fight. Yeah. So what would you get? What would you get them from the bar? Because again, they're very stingy, and they've made you pay for the first round. Remarkable.
I'd get them 6 Bundys each, and then let them fight it out.
That is excellent. That's fantastic. That wraps up Saucy's Sips. Elon and Zuck just going hell for leather out in the back patio.
Perfectly orchestrated Saucy Sips.
Yeah, that's a great finish.
And you know what? I wasn't even processing that's how it would land. It actually worked out that Bezos wasn't there, and obviously that Gates wasn't there, so that it's just them two. Maybe.
Can I just say, I'm actually, I want to put it out there, because I used to be a bit of a Zuck hater is a fair assessment. Yeah,
both did.
Yeah, but I do my wonderful partner Amelia. I've expressed to her recently how impressed I've been by this new Zuck, and seemingly a new man. The way he dresses, the way he talks, and he's more honest. Seemingly, this is actually him revealing himself to the public rather than just I guess playing by the rules and appeasing and pandering to the powers that be. I think Zuck's in great form, and he's revealed himself as a likable guy. So I'm getting there on him. He's got a long way to go, but I'm getting there on him. And I'd like it if Elon and Zuck actually patch things up a bit.
Well, I reckon we get them to brawl out the back on the Bundys, and then they can bring him in, and then they can just patch it up. They'll be much respect. It's one way.
Big hug and a big drunken raging session with Nathan, and the world will be a better place for it.
Oh, racker.
Well, it's a good way to finish, big fella.
It's been a pleasure, mate. Been a good chat.
Indeed.
And we look forward to seeing you all in the next episode of The Red Hot Show.
Thanks, guys.
Beautiful. Stopping.